Welcome back, and this is pretty damn special today, this video I'm about to make, because holy crap, Magic Online is putting up a gauntlet for the early 2000s standard. This is the prime of when I started playing Magic and when I really got into the game and spent a lot of time and effort as a high school kid just really getting into the game. For those who don't know, the decks that were around that time in various standards around the early 2000s are as follows. The first main deck that is probably the top deck of that era is Psychotog. Anybody who hasn't played against it, ridiculously good oppressive deck in that standard format. The combination of Psychotog and Upheaval is just absurd. And then just all the control elements of old school sort of Magic of that era. Counter spells, factor fictions, circular logic, cunning wish. Just an absurdly powerful deck. So this could be one of the decks we get handed at random. I wouldn't be that offended. I've played a very little bit of Psychotog back in the day. The deck I was super into is down here a bit. We'll get to it. We'll talk about it when we get to it here. But after that, we have Fires, which is a deck based around Fires of Yavimaya, kind of an aggressive deck. Flame Tongue Kavu, everybody from back in the day remembers FTK, powerhouse creature back in the day. Its stats, by today's standards, don't quite stand up, but I think it's still a solid dude. And then Fires of Yavimaya, giving all your creatures haste, and having the ability to sacrifice it to pump a creature to kind of push through the last damage or whatever. Deck's very powerful, very good for that era. Chimeric Idol, Blastoderm, Thornscape Battle Mage, just like a kind of a green-red monsters deck before those decks existed, but a little bit lower to the ground. Very good back in the day. Then there's like the legendary Rebels deck. Just an absurdly powerful, valuable, valuable not monetarily, but just a value-based deck where you have all these synergies with Rebels, where you can get one and search for a 2-drop, and up the chain until you get to Linsivia and stuff, and then you could just search any creature out of your deck and just slam it into play. An absurd deck, remembered very fondly by those who played it back in the day. Deck was around a little bit before I started playing Magic, but it was kind of around right when I was really getting into it, still around. Squirrel Opposition, another deck that was around a little bit before I started playing, but stuck around for a while. Just sort of a control-ish deck using the combination of Squirrel Nest, the enchantment you stick on your land, that just lets your land tap and make 1/1 Squirrel tokens, and then Opposition to tap down your opponent's stuff on their turn, and then you just beat them down with stuff like your Little Madness package with Wild Mongrel, Basking Root Wallet, Arrogant Worm, and then control things with Counter Spells, Circular Logics, Factor Fiction, of course, one of the best spells of that era, and, in the long term of Magic of all time. Then the deck that I absolutely don't really want to play, Battle of Wits. I'm not really looking forward to getting handed a 244-card deck that's centered around finding one card. Not a deck that I had really any experience with playing back in the day. I always kind of avoided it because I didn't want to play with a stack of cards this fucking tall. I mean, to be honest, that is a big incentive not to play the deck. Super sweet, and I guess can be a competitive deck, but I'm not so looking forward to it. Then we have a deck that a couple of my good friends playing Magic back in the day used to play. Mono Black Control. Buddy Glenn played this deck as much as possible, and a buddy of mine, Dwayne, both played the hell of mono black control. Chainer's Edict, Duress, just a bunch of like make you sacrifice your dudes, board wipes and mutilate. Just kind of a grindy, slow grind, kill your stuff, and then finally win the game with, by what today's standards would be, underpowered creatures. Visara the Dreadful, I mean, it's powerful, but it's not that crazy. Undead Gladiator, I mean, right now, like, Gristlebrand, would be the card of choice if you're going to play mono black creature that costs 6, 7, 8 mana, whatever. But still, very good deck. Mirari, super cool. And then, like, just making a ton of black mana with Cabal Coffers, stuff like that. Very powerful deck back in the day, very good deck, very consistent deck. Having all, mostly basics and stuff, pretty good. And then Wake, Mirari's Wake, another deck. This lets you make a ton of mana, and not something I played a ton of, but pretty sweet. Make a bunch of angels, kind of like a precursor to, or not precursor, but like an old version of what Entreat the Angels is, right? And then like Control Package, Mana Leak, Cunning Wish, Circular Logic, Moment's Peace, so you could fog and then set up your win. Pretty cool. Goblin Bidding, I played a little bit of Goblins. I played Elves mostly after Odyssey block or Onslaught block, sorry, came out. But Goblins are sweet. Goblin Pile Driver is ridiculous. Sharpshooter. Just all the powerful Goblin synergies that you get just to outrun them. And then, like, Patriarch's Bidding, super cool. You just run all your Goblins out of the graveyard back into play. Pretty sweet deck. Very cool. Wouldn't mind playing it. I'm sure it's probably one of the easier decks to kind of catch on to if you haven't played this format. So, it'd be a pleasure to check it out and give it a go. Aside from that, was the deck that I played religiously back in the format, and that is Blue-Green Madness. My favorite standard deck, or Type 2 deck of all time, using synergy with Wild Mongrels to be able to discard at your own will, and Madness things into play. Basking Rootwalla, Arrogant Worm, the two main things you kind of want to be doing. It also allows you to discard Roar of the Worm to make giant 6/6 Worm tokens for 4 mana. And then you also have this control element with 4 Circular Logic, some bounce spells for their stuff. Another big incentive, too, to play the deck is having Wonder, which gives all your dudes flying, so a 6/6 Flying Worm is pretty tough to deal with in a format that doesn't have the same sort of powerful removal spells that we have today. Just a very consistent, solid deck. I piloted this deck to, I believe, like a top 64 finish in regionals. I think I placed like 38th or so for regionals that year, when regionals was really a big deal and it was a tournament that mattered. It was basically how you worked your way into nationals. I missed the cutoff for nationals by just barely. The story with that was the last round that I played of the tournament. I could have filled out my match slip and dropped from the tournament. Instead, I turned in my match slip without dropping, and then took a loss the following round instead of just having dropped from the tournament. So I would have placed higher mathematically, and may have made a cut somehow on tiebreakers to possibly go to nationals. But being the dummy I was then, I didn't do that. Either way, this is the deck I'm looking to get handed. Hopefully it happens. I played a version of this deck in Pauper now, because any chance I can get to play these cards, I absolutely will. And they're not really viable in any other format now that Extended is not a thing anymore. and in Legacy they're unplayable because Survival of the Fittest is banned. Beyond Madness, there's Slide, which is a cycling deck based around synergy with Astral Slide and Lightning Rift. Astral Slide says whenever you cycle a card or a player cycles a card, you may exile a creature. If you do, return it to its owner's control at the next end step. It has synergy with stuff like Exalted Angel and Morph creatures, because when you slide and flicker out a Morph creature, it comes back face up. So it's a way to get a cheap creature on board. Eternal Dragon, also another haymaker in the deck. And then you have stuff like Wrath of God, Burning Wish package, Renewed Faith, just a bunch of cyclers. My buddy Sean loved this deck the way that I love Blue-Green Madness deck, so it's very cool to see it around in this Gauntlet format. The way the Magic Online Gauntlets work is you basically pay your 10 tickets to enter, or your 100 play points, and they just hand you a deck, and then you play a league with it against people with other decks. It's completely at random, so there's no choosing. So you're going to kind of have to cross your fingers. Like I said, obviously decks I wouldn't mind playing. Like, I'll definitely prefer Madness. I could play Slide, no problem. I've played a little bit of deck before. My buddy Sean, it was his jam. He played a ton of it. I would play Goblin Bidding just because it's just your classic aggro deck. Not something that I would have trouble playing. Then Wake, not what I'm leaning toward. Mono Black Control, I would definitely take for a ride. I don't mind it. I've played that deck a bit here and there. Don't want Battle of Wits. I mean, it'd probably be sweet to just say I got to play it on Magic Online, and that's cool and all, but I'm going to time out if I get this deck, trying to just figure out the line to win. Squirrel Op, I'm cool with. In a lot of versions of Cube, Opposition is one of the most powerful things to be doing. So, very powerful deck, would be sort of fun. Also, kind of plays a little bit of a Madness package, so that's cool. Rebels, super sweet and legendary. I'll take a crack at it if it comes up. Fires, pretty standard stuff. Wouldn't hate it. Wouldn't be my favorite deck to play, but whatever. And then Psychotog, probably, like, arguably the most powerful deck. If I get handed it, sure, I'll probably make some play errors playing it, to be honest, because it's been a long, long time, and the deck wasn't an easier deck to play. There's a lot of different choices and things to do, but when the deck gets online and does its thing, like Dr. Teeth just wrecks it. So there is that, and let's see what we get, and I will see you guys in round 1.